This is ChatGPT, and I have it open working on this NaNoWriMo repository. A lot of this started off with a question that I was asking ChatGPT, which was, how do I make a novel more interesting for people in today's day and age? Because I noticed that there are ebooks, and ebooks are websites, and people haven't really been learning how to make websites. There are a lot of things that you can do that are really interesting that I just don't know if people are really considering or conceptualizing. Like, just so many different things that you can make interesting about a website that aren't very obvious if you haven't spent a long time looking into it. And I don't want to require people to spend a long time looking into these technologies before they understand how they can make them useful. So I'm kind of curious about bridging the gap between people who write novels and people who write code. So I have ChatGPT 4 open, and I'm live streaming on TikTok and describing my thought process for how I'm bringing these two spaces together. So this NaNoWriMo repository started off as just a plain file, which was novels.ts. And that exists here. Let's see, 256. This is when I last edited it. And I don't think that I have any commits in this repository yet. Let's see, do I have a git ignore? No, I don't. So the first thing that I wanted to do, because updating these, I ran out of credits with ChatGPT o1 preview, and that just changed the context window that ChatGPT has access to, as well as some of the processing details. But doing that meant that a lot of the updates throughout the code base weren't actually propagated. Like, they didn't actually get made. And so things like character name, I don't think exists in the code base. There's character event, which is in this file, but character name doesn't exist. And emotional tone, I don't think exists anymore either. I think emotional tone type does. And so stuff like this, where I'm not necessarily convinced that this is the structure that I'm going to move forward with, because enums are, I don't know if that's, like, some of them are going to be more tangible in specific places. Like, there are only going to be a certain set of senses. And so it makes sense to me to have this as an enum, but display timing, maybe it would make more sense to have the display timing be an array of important markers, and then that can be changed per novel. I don't know. So that's the space that I'm considering with ChatGPT. And I have this Google Drive folder open, which is just where I keep my thoughts. I create a folder that's named after the year, month, and then day, and just keep everything in those folders so I can download them and they're in order by the year, month, and day. And I can just look into whatever and pull out the assets. I'm probably going to edit this into a video later. Probably. I might not edit this particular code or this particular coding session. I might just upload this to YouTube and say, hey, if you're a tech person, you can do this too, and people will believe that you've at least done this. So ChatGPT responded to me asking for, well, to me using the tree command in the sources directory. I did tree, source, and pb copy. So I'm actually going to cd into backend and then do the same thing. And then open a scratch file and have that be plain text, and then just paste that. That's interesting. Show context actions. Why is this NBSP? That's interesting. So I don't know how the terminal represented a non-breaking space character. I'm used to that being, let me see if I can create another scratch file. In HTML, I'm used to the non-breaking space being like HTML, head, body. And I think this is throwing an error because it needs a language, which is English. And this is throwing an error because it needs a title, which is demo NBSP. So I'm used to non-breaking spaces being an HTML entity, and there are a whole bunch of these, and they just represent different things that a browser would want to represent, like a non-breaking space character. And this is relevant when you have code that's in tags that, how do I describe this? So for example, this text would be rendered as if there is only one space between each word, regardless of whether there are new lines or multiple space characters, literally. NBSP, non-breaking space characters, allow us to prevent the collapse of white space without using CSS. So that's just me talking. I don't think that I'm actually going to render this, but this is something that you can do. Like if you're coding and you want to just describe your thoughts, you can put it into an HTML file and then use a function called serve that will allow you to serve those files. And if I wanted to, I could probably some sort of function that will allow me to replace those. Anyway, that was such a tangent. I was just kind of, hey, that's interesting that when I pasted this, that's how it showed up. So the main thing, correlation.ts, cursor.ts, and logger.ts are, that seems strange to me that they're in the root of the source directory. And I remember this was something that O1 Preview recommended, or O1 Mini recommended. And this is right after I ran out of credits and I was just trying to see specifically the kind of direction that this could go. So I was just expanding all of these definitions and creating a whole bunch of files. Because I haven't really dug into correlation IDs as a utility yet. So it was interesting to me. The structure shows a well-organized TypeScript project with a modular setup. Then it lists correlation.ts, cursor.ts, and logger.ts for logging, handling cursors, and tracking correlations. And then it lists some other files. Let's see, those are alphabetical. So sample data, novel.ts, sample data.ts, and server.ts are the other files in the root of this directory. So I am kind of curious if it can produce something that is a bit more meaningful. Directories, it lists the middleware, routes, types, and utilities and validation directories. So I'm kind of curious about correcting this directory structure. And I want to do this using Vim, if possible, or as much Vim as possible, because I want to practice using Vim. That's what I use to insert characters here. Like, just a simple example, going to the end of a line using the $sign and then the % to alternate between characters. You can press the V key to enter visual mode, and then the % key to select an entire block. That kind of stuff is so useful for navigating code bases, and I just want to get good. So I'm going to say, I'm not convinced by my directory structure. Additionally, some amateur-ish refactoring has broken the names of types, and I deleted all imports. I want to make you aware the existing types. And I also want to get better at command line navigation / terminal proficiency, especially as it relates to them. Please, my inclination is to, okay, so I'm going to go over to the Scratch file and rename this actually. I'm going to rename this NaNoWriMo tree.txt. So I'm going to say that my inclination is to do something like I don't know actually how to delete to character DTB or DB. Is that something? No. Okay, so DW, deleting the word deleted this pipe character. So I can go down all of the types and just do this. And I know that cat is a command that ChatGPT mentioned to output the contents of a file. And so I can just go through a multiple cursors kind of thing, say cat, and then run this from the backend directory. So source / types / alias.ts, and then pipe that into pbcopy. But this doesn't look good. So I'm going to say my inclination is to go file by file through the types and I'm just going to paste what I have. But this doesn't seem like the best approach. I'm curious if there are ways to list the contents of a directory and concatenate a file. ChatGPT is thinking a little bit. A more efficient approach would be to concatenate the files into a single output or view them in a sequence without manually copying each one. List and concatenate all type files. So I can cat all of the TS files in the source / types directory and then pipe them to the pbcopy command. Or I can pipe them through the less command and then scroll through the file contents. Or I can find in the source / types directory files that are named something that begins with something that has some sort of beginning, any character beginning, and ends with .ts. Then I can take all of those arguments using xargs, I believe. So I believe this outputs a list, and xargs takes all of the items from that list and applies the next cat or the next command to them, which is cat, and then pbcopy copies them to the clipboard. Okay. And then there's also using the n and prev, I don't know what those are called, macros in Vim. So I'm going to do the first one because that seems like the easiest. I'm going to undo this. That was an interesting exercise. And this is the kind of stuff where theoretically it is possible. Theoretically it is possible to just do that every time. But after a while, I feel annoyed that I have to do it every time. And I'm going to try to find ways to not need to. And so being able to run commands like this is so useful. I'm going to create another scratch file. It's plain text. I'm just going to paste the contents here. And I see that this is, let's see, all of these have types. Yes. Yes. I believe so. All of these have names at the top of the file, I believe. And I'm sure there's a way to check that as well. I could use the head command, and actually, I am kind of curious about that. There we go. Use split windows to view multiple files at once. vsplit. Search and replace across files. When renaming types or making systematic changes across files. Global search and replace. So argdo runs a command in all arguments, files you opened. And then there's a replacement command that replaces all instances of a term in each file. And the update command updates all of the, what is this? Save changes automatically. I don't know what that means. Navigate by word. Quickly move around by pressing W to jump word by word or E to jump to the end of words. Use marks for reference. Use M plus letter in specific locations so you can jump between them while editing across files. So if you'd like to view all type definitions together, try concatenating them into one file for easier scanning or documentation purposes. So this is always going to be an option where in the types file, let's see, one of the options that I can always do is to go through the types file and then concatenate all of those into one using this command, and then just edit the Vim. And I think that's what I'm going to do. But I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it in this video because I feel like this is long enough and I need to edit it. But that's the kind of stuff that you can do with ChatGPT, and the kind of stuff that I would do. I have 13 years of experience as a developer. So that's the kind of stuff that I find interesting. Cheers.